Good evening and thank you for joining us for KREM News 10 at 10, where we give you more news in less time. Let's get started. The Spokane City Council needs another week to decide which organization will operate a new homeless shelter. Tonight, supporters of Jules Helping Hands made their case for hundreds of tiny homes. As KREM 2's Kyle Shimchuk reports, it's an idea the City Council president called creative.
Council members were not ready to award a contract tonight because the committee reviewing these three nonprofits and their plans has not made a recommendation. A lot of people speaking here want the city to take a different approach. They believe tiny homes are the answer.
Please let us get to a place where we can be safe and put our heads down on a pillow. That's all we ask for.
The Salvation Army and the Guardians Foundation have each submitted their own proposal to operate a homeless shelter. So has Jules Helping Hands. Only one organization will get the contract.
Last June, the city closed 100 low-barrier shelter beds, and we had a law that says you were supposed to replace them immediately, and they didn't. And that's what evolved into Camp Hope, too, was 100 people who could have been sheltered, and of course now it's turned into 300 people.
The new Camp Hope off I-90 in Freya is home to hundreds of tents. Jules Helping Hands is asking the city for $1 million to buy more than 120 tiny homes, known as pallet shelters. They take less than an hour to set up.
We need to try the pallet shelter idea that's now being used up and down the West Coast successfully. It occurs to me that everyone needs their space, their place to call their own, where they can get away to sometimes.
Volunteers and supporters of Jules Helping Hands want council members to fund their proposal and $10 million for staffing, mental health, and addiction treatment that would be located on site.
In February, when we had that cold snap, the city did nothing and people died. People died. Like, come on.
Wouldn't it be nice to go into the winter not wondering where they're going to go, but actually how we're going to help them?
The new Camp Hope is on property owned by the Washington Department of Transportation. Council President Brian Begg says new laws give WashDOT the authority to lease the land to the city and low-income housing projects at a reasonable price.
Council President Brian Beggs is confident that members will be ready to vote and award a contract during next week's meeting. Reporting from City Hall, Kyle Shimchuk, KREM 2 News.
All right, our other big story tonight, the weather. Snow fell across the inland northwest today. While we saw mostly flurries here in Spokane, it was a different story south of here on the Palouse. Spring snow blanketed Pullman and Moscow today. Students at WSU say they were surprised by the mid-spring snow. With that, let's get outside to meteorologist Jeremy Legoo. And Jeremy, what can folks expect when they wake up tomorrow morning?
Oh, some chilly temperatures, Mark. Now, officially, we didn't record any snow, so it unofficially fell today. Trace amounts means that this doesn't go down in the books as a measurable snowfall for us here in Spokane. You got to work your way to the south. 34 degrees currently. It is quite chilly. You factor in a light wind, feels like it's in the 20s, and that's the case across the region because wind's still staying a bit stronger out in central Washington. Temps in the 30s everywhere. Wind continues to die down overnight, and by tomorrow we'll see it pick up again, but notice 20 miles per hour, that's quite a bit less than today. And when you're talking 20 miles an hour, for the most part, that's pretty negligible. What we do still have is the potential for more snow. Notice we trimmed out the Palouse, but parts of North Idaho and down into the southern portion of the Idaho Panhandle still facing the brunt of that storm. That's now working its way out. You can see not near as impressive as it was. Snow's a little bit lighter, a little more sparse in nature, and that's going to work its way out overnight. Tomorrow we'll hang on to some of those scattered snow showers, but yes, it is going to be a chilly morning. Overnight temps fall back down to near 30 degrees. And believe it or not, this is one of the warmest mornings we'll have in the next few. Coming up, I'll walk you through a cold few days ahead.
All right, Jeremy, thank you very much. New tonight, fire crews in eastern Washington are getting more resources to fight wildfires. 4 new wildfire engines are coming to eastern Washington fire districts. It's part of DNR's efforts to strengthen rural fire districts in fire-prone areas. Spokane Fire District 2, Stevens Fire Districts 5 and 10, and Pend Oreille Fire District 5 will get the engines this month. Commissioner of DNR, Hillary Franz, says she will present the engines to the fire districts on April 18th. All right, now to our night beat with a quick look at the day's top stories.
I don't know that we're sending the right message when felons have guns and they're getting out within a day or two, that you don't do this in Spokane.
That was Spokane Police Chief Craig Meidel talking about recent violence across the city. 2 people are in critical condition after a drive-by shooting in downtown Spokane. The suspect in that shooting, Jonathan Love, faced a judge for the first time today. He is charged with 3 counts of drive-by shooting and 3 counts of first-degree assault. The shooting was just one of a string of shootings this weekend. City leaders are calling for a plan to address the escalating violence. We'll hear from them coming up in just a few minutes. Meantime, Scraps in Spokane says they have too many animals and not enough space. The shelter says it currently has 30 adoptable dogs in their care, but only have enough space for 40 dogs. They are reducing adoption fees in hopes of finding those dogs new homes. The Washington Department of Fish and Wildlife says the state's wolf population continues to grow. The department released their annual wolf report, and it shows a 16% increase in the wolf population the past year. There were 28 more wolves in the state in 2021 compared to 2020. There are also 5 new packs that have formed. 2 of them are in Ferry and Stevens counties, which have the biggest wolf populations. The other 3 are in Chelan and Columbia counties, and 1 on the Colville Reservation. But still no packs in the southwestern part of the state. Well, Central Valley alum Lexi Hull was drafted 6th overall in the WNBA draft today by the Indiana Fever. That's the reaction from her draft watch party today with her family and teammates down in Palo Alto, California. She ties with LC alum Brianne January as the highest WNBA draft pick to come out of Spokane. Congratulations to her. And that was your Night Beat. To learn more about any of these stories, just text us the word night to 509-448-2000 and we'll send them directly to your phone. In other Northwest news tonight, remains found in Idaho County all the way back in 1984 have been identified as a missing Oklahoma man. The 38-year-long mystery was solved thanks to developments in technology. Roger Bennett went missing after his discharge from the Air Force back in 1982. 2 years later, hunters found skeletal remains. The big breakthrough, though, in this case came back in March when some genetic testing was performed with the bones and a potential family match was found. Well, that match was confirmed, and now his remains are being returned to his family 37 years later. Lori Vallow was found competent to stand trial today. Vallow is charged with the murder of her 2 children, and so is her husband, Chad Daybell. The remains of 7-year-old J.J. Vallow and 16-year-old Tylee Ryan were found on Daybell's property back in June of 2020. Investigators say Vallow believed her children were, quote, zombies or inhabited by evil spirits. But again, the court says that she is competent. Previously, she was treated and evaluated in a state-run facility. Her arraignment is expected to take place on April 19th in Fremont County, Idaho. Now to some international news. Ukrainian officials are telling residents in the eastern part of the country to get out now ahead of expected major attacks by Russian forces. Allegations of war crimes committed by Russian President Vladimir Putin and his troops are intensifying.
It's also fairly transparent for the world to see the brutality and the war crimes that Russian forces are conducting.
The refugee crisis, meantime, continues to worsen. Now UNICEF says almost 2/3 of Ukraine's estimated 7.5 million children have been displaced by the war.
This is begun. It's not hard to put together.
Today, President Joe Biden and his Justice Department announced new executive regulations to address homemade weapons known as ghost guns. Ghost guns are homemade firearms that can be assembled using a 3D printer or with kits purchased online. They lack serial numbers, which makes it impossible for law enforcement to trace them. The goal is to classify them the same as regular firearms. Philadelphia is now the first city to reinstate an indoor mask mandate for public places. It comes after an uptick in COVID cases. Experts say is driven by the Omicron BA2 subvariant. The spikes are being watched closely, but so far, hospitalizations remain low. In fact, the lowest at any point during the entire pandemic.
It takes time to adjust to higher prices and higher costs. You don't just snap your fingers and get more production.
The price of eggs going up an average of 56 cents per carton. Costs are being driven up by several factors, including an outbreak of bird flu that has forced farmers to kill more than 20 million chickens and the rising cost of corn and wheat feed. And that was your KREM 2 News 10 at 10, where you get more news in less time. Don't go to bed just yet, though. A violent weekend in Spokane has city leaders calling for a plan to reduce gang violence across the city. Hear from them coming up in just 90 seconds.